The scent of lilies and melting candle wax filled Sacred Heart Chapel like a funeral instead of a wedding. Lucia Martinez's calloused hands trembled as she adjusted the vintage lace veil, her abuela's, worn 40 years ago in a ceremony that had actually ended in marriage. The delicate fabric caught on her work-roughened fingers, a reminder that she'd finished a double shift just 9 hours ago, scrubbing grease traps and serving overpriced pasta to people who never looked waitresses in the eye. Her feet throbbed in the borrowed silver heels, 2 sizes too small, borrowed from her best friend Maria, who stood beside her now as maid of honor. 62 guests filled the pews, mostly David's colleagues from Morrison and Hart law firm, their designer suits and judgment filling the air thicker than incense. David's mother, Catherine, sat front row in cream Chanel, her pinched expression making clear exactly what she thought of her son marrying the help. David stood rigid at the altar, his designer Tom Ford suit perfect, his jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on the stained glass window of St. Sebastian, as though the martyr might offer him escape. Father Miguel cleared his throat for the 3rd time, his discomfort palpable. 23 minutes late to their own ceremony. Lucia counted every one of them. Maria squeezed her hand, a lifeline in the suffocating silence. The simple wedding dress, clearance rack at David's bridal, $200 that had taken her 3 weeks of tip money to save, suddenly felt too tight, like it was strangling her from the outside in. She'd thought it was beautiful when she tried it on. Now it felt like a costume she had no business wearing. Father Miguel's voice cracked slightly as he attempted to proceed. "David Mitchell, do you take this woman?" "No." David's voice cut through the chapel like a blade through silk. Sharp. Final. Devastating. The word echoed off the vaulted ceiling. 62 people gasped as one. He turned to face Lucia fully for the first time that morning, his handsome face cold, his blue eyes empty of anything resembling love or even basic human decency. "I can't marry someone who smells like grease and cheap coffee. Someone beneath me." His voice rose, addressing the guests now, performing his cruelty for an audience. "My colleagues at the firm expect a wife who fits my position, not a waitress who serves them lunch." Catherine's lips curved into the smallest, most satisfied smile. This hadn't been a last-minute decision. This had been planned. Orchestrated. Lucia had been brought here specifically to be destroyed. Burning shame flooded Lucia's face, her olive skin flushing dark with humiliation. She remembered everything in brutal clarity, saving her tip money for 6 months, every single dollar, skipping meals so she could afford the venue deposit David insisted on, the borrowed dress because she couldn't afford new, sending less money to her mother in Honduras, less money for her father's medication, so David could have his perfect wedding. Her throat closed, words dying before they could form. The wedding program slipped from Maria's trembling hands, the cheap cardstock fluttering to the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot in the terrible silence. Lucia's vision blurred. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Could only feel the weight of 62 pairs of eyes watching her complete and utter destruction. The heavy wooden doors at the back of the cathedral swung open with deliberate, measured force. The sound crashed through the space like thunder. Every head turned as one. The whispers died instantly. Even David's cruel performance froze mid-breath. William Alberto entered like a shadow made flesh, tall and imposing in a tailored black suit that looked Italian and expensive enough to fund Lucia's rent for a year. His dark hair swept back from a face that seemed carved from stone, all sharp angles and controlled power. 3 men flanked him, hands folded professionally, but their watchful eyes and the bulges under their suit jackets made their purpose unmistakable. More men in dark suits filtered in behind them with military precision, positioning themselves at every exit, along the walls, blocking escape routes with casual efficiency. Lucia recognized him instantly. Table 7, Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Espresso, no sugar, tiramisu, never touched, cash only. Always exactly $2.15, $15 for the bill, $200 tip pressed into her hand with a quiet, "Thank you, Lucia," that made her name sound like something precious. For 6 months, he'd been part of her routine, a strange comfort in the chaos of her life. She'd never known his last name, never asked why he always sat alone, watching everything, his dark eyes tracking movement like a predator tracking prey. Now he walked down the aisle with purposeful steps, expensive leather shoes echoing on marble, and the atmosphere transformed. Not awkward anymore, dangerous. His dark eyes found hers across the chapel, and Lucia felt pinned in place by the intensity of his gaze. Something passed between them, recognition, calculation, something else she couldn't name. David's face drained of color, transforming from arrogant to terrified in the space of a heartbeat. His hand shot out to grip the altar, knuckles white, body swaying slightly. "Who?" Catherine started to demand, but her voice died when one of William's men simply looked at her. William stopped 3 feet from Lucia, close enough that she could smell cedar and gunpowder, and something darker underneath. Close enough to see the tattoos creeping up from his collar. Coordinates, she thought, though she couldn't read them clearly. Lucia Martinez. His voice was low, accented, Italian or Spanish, she couldn't quite place it, and it carried absolute command despite its quiet tone. She managed a small nod, still clutching her bouquet of simple carnations like a shield. "You know who I am." Not a question, a statement. Her voice barely worked, coming out as a whisper. "Mr. Alberto, table 7, Thursday nights." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise? Satisfaction? Before his gaze shifted to David with such cold contempt that Lucia felt the temperature drop. "Your fiancé," William said the word like it tasted rotten, "has a $750,000 gambling debt to my organization." Audible gasps rippled through the pews. Catherine's face went white. Several of David's colleagues shifted uncomfortably, suddenly very interested in their shoes. "The prestigious law career?" William continued, his voice carrying effortlessly through the chapel. "A facade. He's been embezzling from clients to pay the interest. Isn't that right, David?" David's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. No sound came out. "He planned to flee to Seattle," William said, and now his eyes returned to Lucia, something almost like gentleness entering his expression. "Immediately after this ceremony, you were his respectable cover, hiding his addiction from his family and firm, making him look stable while he stole and gambled and planned his escape." Lucia's knees nearly buckled. Maria caught her elbow, steadying her, but Lucia barely felt it. 3 years. 3 years of late-night conversations and modest dates and meeting his family and suffering Catherine's thinly veiled contempt. 3 years of believing she wasn't good enough for him when the truth was so much worse. She hadn't been a girlfriend. She'd been a prop, a disguise, a useful lie. "I never meant to hurt you, Lucia." David finally found his voice, thin and desperate. "You were supposed to make me look stable. I never thought, I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Shut up." William's voice was quiet, but it cut through David's babbling like a razor. "You used her, drained her savings, let her starve herself to fund your fantasy, let her send less money to her dying father so you could have your perfect venue." How did he know about her father? How did he know any of this? William's attention shifted back to Lucia, and this time there was no mistaking the intensity there. "He refused you, called you beneath him, in front of everyone." She couldn't speak, could barely stand. "I won't make that mistake," William said. The chapel held its breath. He addressed the guests directly, his voice carrying authority that made even Father Miguel straighten involuntarily. "The wedding will proceed, just with a different groom." "What?" The word escaped Lucia's lips before she could stop it. William's eyes never left hers. "I've waited 6 months for him to prove himself unworthy of you. He's exceeded my expectations. You've been—" Lucia's mind reeled. "Waiting?" "Watching," William corrected. "Learning. Understanding." He took a single step closer, and Lucia caught her breath. "You send $400 to your mother in Tegucigalpa every month. Your father's medical bills. You take business management classes Tuesday and Thursday nights at community college. February 14th. You gave your coat to a homeless woman on 7th Street and walked home in 28-degree weather." Her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't possible. This was insane. Your favorite poet is Pablo Neruda, William continued, his voice dropping to something almost intimate despite their audience. Your dream is to open a Honduran restaurant called Abuela's Kitchen. Last semester, you wrote an essay on economic mobility and immigrant entrepreneurship that your professor called brilliant. How do you know these things? Her voice came out strangled. Because I've been paying attention. William signaled to one of his men, who approached with a manila envelope. The building your mother rents, I own it now. 6 months of back rent. Forgiven. He held out the envelope. Lucia's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped it. Inside were official documents, property deeds, stamped and notarized. Why would you? She couldn't finish the question. Because you were breaking yourself to carry everyone else. William's voice softened. Someone needed to carry you. Maria stepped forward, her face a mixture of terror and fierce protectiveness. Lucia, you don't have to do anything he says. She doesn't, William agreed, his tone respectful. Walk away right now, Lucia. I'll settle David's debt my own way. You'll never see me again. You have my word. Lucia looked at David, who had edged toward the side door. One of William's men blocked his path with casual efficiency. She understood with perfect, horrible clarity. If she walked away, David died. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But eventually, inevitably, William's patience would run out. Despite everything, the lies, the cruelty, the calculated humiliation, she didn't want David's blood on her conscience. He was a coward and a user, but he wasn't worth killing. Or, William said, and his voice dropped to something just for her, intimate despite the 62 witnesses. Marry me. I'll give you everything he promised and more. You'll be mine, completely, but you'll never doubt your worth again. The choice was impossible, her conscience or her future, death or captivity, freedom or guilt. But when she looked into William's eyes, she didn't see cruelty. She saw something else, something that looked almost like reverence. The license, Father Miguel said quietly, and everyone turned to him. His face was pale, guilt-stricken. It's already been modified, Mr. Alberto's name instead of David's. Lucia stared at the priest. You knew? He donated $500,000 to rebuild our community center, Father Miguel whispered, the one that serves your neighborhood. I'm sorry, Lucia, but he promised no one would be hurt. The cage had been built long before today. The venue, the flowers, the priest, everything. This wedding had never really been David's. It had been William's all along, and she'd walked into it blind. But she looked down at the deed in her hands, thought of her mother's relief, her father's medication. She'd also been protected, supported, valued in a way David never had. William extended his hand, tattoos visible on his wrist, coordinates, a compass rose, other symbols she couldn't read. I'm not a good man, Lucia, he said quietly, but I'll be good to you. That's my vow. She looked at his hand, looked at David, cowering by the wall, all his cruelty exposed. Thought of her mother's building, her own exhaustion, the years of being told she wasn't enough. Her hand moved before her mind fully decided. Her fingers touched his palm. His hand closed around hers, warm, steady, possessive. Yes, she whispered, then louder, voice surprising her with its steadiness. Yes, I'll marry you. Catherine made a sound like a dying cat. Maria gasped. Several guests started whispering frantically. David found his voice one last time. You can't do this. This is insane. William didn't even glance at him. You're irrelevant now. Leave. The debt is paid by her. She's worth far more than $750,000. William's voice was cold, final. 2 of my men will escort you to the airport. I suggest Seattle. Or further. David's protests faded as he was efficiently removed from the chapel, his mother following in his wake, her cream Chanel suit and social pretensions equally crumpled. Father Miguel, hands visibly shaking, opened his liturgy. Shall we begin? William positioned himself at the altar, pulling Lucia gently to stand beside him. Maria stayed at her post as maid of honor, though her face was white with shock. The guests sat in stunned, terrified silence. No one dared leave. "Do you, William Alberto, take this woman?" "I do." Firm, immediate, no hesitation. "Do you, Lucia Maria Martinez?" She faltered, looking at William's face. His expression was intense, focused entirely on her, waiting, not demanding, waiting. "I do." Her voice surprised her with its steadiness. Something shifted in William's eyes. Relief? Triumph? Something softer she couldn't name. He spoke without prompting, his voice carrying through the chapel. "What's mine, I protect. What's mine, I keep." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "What's mine, I cherish. And you, Lucia, will never doubt your worth again." Her throat tightened with unexpected emotion. She found herself speaking too, words she hadn't planned. "I don't know you. I don't understand this, but I'm choosing to try." She met his eyes directly. "If you want me, you'll have to earn me. Every day." William's smile was genuine, transforming his face from dangerous to devastatingly handsome. "I wouldn't want it any other way." Father Miguel produced rings with shaking hands. William's was a simple platinum band. The one he slid onto her finger was platinum set with small emeralds. "Your birthstone," William said quietly. "I noticed the earrings you wore in October. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably measured her fingers while she slept, or bribed a jeweler, or done something equally impossible. You may kiss the bride." William's hand cupped her face with surprising gentleness. The kiss was patient, questioning, not demanding. Lucia's eyes closed despite herself. She tasted mint and something darker, dangerous. When they parted, she was breathless, trembling, marked. "I present to you, Mr. and Mrs. Alberto." Scattered, confused applause. Most of the guests looked like they'd witnessed a kidnapping rather than a wedding. Maybe they had. Lucia wasn't sure anymore. William kept her hand firmly in his as they turned to face the chapel. His other hand rested at the small of her back, possessive but not forceful. They walked down the aisle together, past the shocked faces, past Maria's worried expression, past the empty spaces where David and Catherine had been. Outside, a black luxury car waited, engine running. The autumn air was cold after the stuffy chapel. Lucia shivered, and immediately William's suit jacket was around her shoulders, still warm from his body. He opened the car door for her, helped her arrange her dress, then slid in beside her. The door closed with an expensive final sound. As the car pulled away from Sacred Heart Chapel, William's hand found hers again. "The hard part is over," he said quietly, his lips close to her ear. "Now I get to show you who I really am." Lucia looked at her reflection in the tinted window. She looked like a bride, flushed, dazed, marked, married to a stranger, a criminal. A man who'd orchestrated her entire life for 6 months without her knowledge. She should be terrified. She was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. She'd been rejected by a coward who saw her as beneath him. She'd been claimed by a monster who saw her as priceless. Which was worse? Which was better? As the city lights began to blur past the windows, Lucia closed her eyes and tried to remember how to breathe. Her old life was gone, destroyed in a single cruel sentence at the altar. Her new life was beginning, and she had no idea if she'd been saved or captured. Maybe, she thought as William's thumb traced gentle circles on her wrist, it was both. The car ride passed in silence, broken only by the hum of expensive engineering and the distant sounds of the city. Lucia stared out the window, watching her old neighborhood give way to gleaming high-rises and pristine sidewalks. Each block took her further from everything she knew. William hadn't let go of her hand. They arrived at a building in the financial district, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. The doorman greeted William with a respectful nod that looked more like a bow. The elevator required a key card for the top floor. Of course it did. The penthouse doors opened directly into the apartment. No hallway, no neighbors, just immediate, overwhelming luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city lights like scattered diamonds. The space was elegant but lived in. Leather furniture worn soft with use, bookshelves packed with actual books, art that looked original and expensive. A kitchen that was clearly used, not just for show. "This is your home now," William said quietly, finally releasing her hand. "Everything in it is yours." Lucia stood frozen in her borrowed heels and clearance rack dress, utterly out of place. "I don't understand any of this." "I know." He moved through the space with the ease of familiarity, turning on soft lights that made everything glow warm. "Let me show you." He led her down a hallway. The master bedroom was understated luxury, California king bed, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that probably cost more per month than she made in a year. "And this," he opened another door, "is yours, private. Your own bathroom, your own space." The second bedroom was smaller but no less beautiful. Soft creams and blues, a comfortable bed, a reading chair by the window. Between the two bedrooms was a connecting door. William produced a key from his pocket and placed it in her palm. His fingers were warm against hers. "This side locks from your room only," he said, his voice careful, deliberate. "I won't enter without permission." Lucia stared at the key, then at him. "You're giving me a locked door?" "I'm giving you a choice." His dark eyes held hers. "Every night, the choice is yours." She wanted to ask why a man who'd orchestrated her entire wedding, who commanded men with guns, who owned buildings and forgave debts, would give her a locked door and call it a choice. But her throat was too tight, her mind too overwhelmed. William seemed to understand. "You need time, space. I'll give you both." He moved toward the door, then paused. "There are clothes in the closet, your size, comfortable things, and—" He hesitated, something almost vulnerable crossing his face. "I had your things brought from your apartment. Your books, your photos, your abuela's recipe box. They're in boxes by the dresser. I didn't want you to feel like you'd lost everything." Before she could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Lucia stood alone in her new bedroom, in her borrowed shoes and clearance dress, a key burning in her palm. She'd been saved, or captured, or both. And she had no idea which terrified her more. Lucia woke disoriented, sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, she forgot. Then the weight of the platinum and emerald ring on her finger brought everything crashing back. She was married. To a stranger. To a criminal who'd watched her for 6 months. She sat up slowly, still wearing the pajamas she'd found folded on the bed last night. Soft cotton, her exact size, tags removed. The connecting door remained closed, untouched from her side. The scent of coffee drew her from the room. In the kitchen, a cup waited on the counter, still steaming, prepared exactly how she liked it. 2 sugars, cinnamon, a splash of cream. A handwritten note beside it in bold, masculine script. "Your shift at the restaurant is covered for the week. The choice to return is yours." Her throat tightened. He remembered how she took her coffee, from watching her during her shifts probably. The intimacy of it made her skin prickle. On the dining table, she found her business management textbooks arranged neatly. Her notes, her laptop, even her favorite chewed-up pen that she'd thought lost weeks ago. Beside them sat a new leather-bound notebook, expensive and pristine. She opened it with trembling fingers. The first page held a single line in that same bold handwriting. "For your restaurant plans, every empire starts with a notebook. W." The scent of cooking pulled her deeper into the apartment. Plantains, eggs, black beans, the smell of home, of her abuela's kitchen, of Sunday mornings before everything got complicated. William stood at the stove in a simple t-shirt and dress pants, no suit jacket, no armor. Just a man cooking breakfast with careful attention. He didn't notice her at first, focused on the pan, and she watched him plate food with surprising care. Traditional Honduran breakfast, exactly what her abuela used to make. "My mother taught me before she died," he said without turning, as if he'd known she was there all along. "Cooking is how I think, how I remember her." He gestured to the table with a spatula. "Sit, please." Lucia sat cautiously, and he placed the plate before her. The food was perfect, better than perfect, the kind of cooking that only came from love and memory and practice. "You made this for me?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "I made this for us." He sat across from her with his own plate. "I don't like eating alone." They ate in careful silence, the city waking up beyond the windows. Lucia's mind raced with 1,000 questions, but one kept surfacing, demanding answers. "What do you want from me, really?" William set down his fork, meeting her eyes directly. "Honestly, I don't know anymore." Her confusion must have shown because he continued. "6 months ago, I wanted to possess something beautiful that the world undervalued, something everyone else was too stupid to see." He paused, jaw tightening. "Now? I want you to choose to be here. There's a difference." "What exactly do you do?" Lucia asked, needing the truth, needing to understand the man she'd married. "No more games, no more mystery." William didn't flinch. "I run import and export operations. Some legal, art, wine, luxury goods. Some less so, pharmaceuticals that bypass regulations, electronics that avoid tariffs. Information that people pay dearly to keep secret." He leaned back, watching her carefully. "I manage territory, collect debts, ensure order in chaos. I've killed people who threatened what's mine." Lucia's coffee cup trembled slightly in her hand. "I need to understand your world if I'm going to survive in it," she said, surprised by her own steadiness. Something shifted in William's expression. Surprise, then what looked almost like pride. "You want the truth? All of it?" "Yes. No more surprises. No more surveillance reveals. If I'm here, I need to know what here means." "Agreed." He nodded slowly. "Ask me anything." Lucia took a breath. "Did you have David followed?" "Yes, for 11 months. Were you going to kill him? If he'd married you and continued to devalue you?" William's voice was matter of fact. "Eventually, yes." She absorbed this, the casual way he discussed murder like it was a business decision. "And now?" "Now he's irrelevant, living in Seattle with his cousin, probably ruining someone else's life. I have people watching to make sure he stays there." William leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "Are you afraid of me?" Lucia considered this honestly. "I should be. But no, not physically. Emotionally? Terrified." The admission came easier than she expected. "You have the power to destroy me without ever raising your hand. You know everything about me. You've orchestrated my life. You could take everything away as easily as you gave it." His jaw tightened, something pained crossing his features. "I won't. That's the one promise I can make absolutely. Whatever happens between us, I won't use what I know to hurt you." Lucia stared at him, at this contradiction of a man, dangerous and gentle, controlling and offering choices. A killer who cooked his dead mother's recipes for breakfast. "Teach me," she said suddenly. "Teach you what?" "Your world. How it works, how to navigate it, how to protect myself in it." Her voice strengthened with each word. "If I'm going to be here, I'm not going to be helpless. I'm not a pet or a prisoner." William's smile was slow, genuine, transforming his entire face. "No, you're definitely not." He stood, offering his hand across the table. "Then let's begin your education, Mrs. Alberto." William's home office was all dark wood and leather, controlled chaos organized with military precision. Maps covered one wall, the city divided into colored sections like a strategy board, ledgers stacked on shelves, multiple phones that weren't smartphones lined his desk. "Lesson 1, he said, gesturing for her to sit in the chair across from his desk. "In my world, information is currency, more valuable than money, more dangerous than weapons." Lucia sat, her coffee cup warming her hands, and listened. He explained his operation with startling honesty. The legitimate businesses, art imports, wine distribution, luxury goods that moved through proper channels. Then the gray areas, pharmaceuticals that bypassed certain regulations, electronics that avoided inconvenient tariffs, information brokers who paid handsomely for secrets. "I'm not the top," William said, leaning against his desk. "I answer to people. But in this city, I'm the authority they've appointed." "Who do you answer to?" Lucia asked. "People you'll never meet. That's intentional. For your safety. What happens if you fail them?" William's pause was answer enough. Then quietly, "Then you focus on not failing." He showed her photographs next, 4 men and 2 women, various ages, all with the same watchful intensity. "Your protection detail," he explained. "They'll be with you always. You won't always see them, but they're there. To control me? To keep you alive." His voice was firm. "From people who would hurt you to hurt me. That's the reality of being my wife, Lucia. You're valuable to my enemies now." The weight of it settled over her like a heavy coat. She'd known, abstractly, that marrying him meant danger. But hearing it stated so plainly made it real. William handed her a phone. New, encrypted, unfamiliar. "Pre-programmed numbers. Me, your detail, emergency contacts." He paused. "Your mother's number is in there. You can call whenever you want." Lucia's throat tightened. "You're letting me contact my family?" "I'm not a jailer, Lucia. I never was." He pushed the phone into her hands. "Call her. Now. Tell her whatever you want." She stared at him, searching for the trap, the catch, the hidden control. "There's no trap," he said, reading her expression. "She deserves to know you're safe." With shaking hands, Lucia dialed. The phone rang twice. "Mija?" Her mother's voice, worried, familiar, home. "Maria called, said something happened at the wedding." "Mommy." Lucia's voice cracked. "I'm married. Not to David. To someone else." The conversation flowed, Lucia explaining minimally, focusing on the building, the forgiven rent, carefully avoiding the dangerous parts. Her mother's relief was palpable through the phone. "You sound different, Mija. Are you safe?" "Yes, Mommy. I'm safe." When she hung up, tears streamed down her face. William handed her tissues without commentary, giving her space to compose herself. "You gave me the most dangerous weapon," Lucia said finally. "What?" "Hope. Permission to still be human. That was always the point." He opened a laptop next, pulled up a bank account statement. Her name, a balance that made her dizzy, $50,000. "Deposited monthly," William said. "Yours. Spend it, save it, send it to Honduras. Your choice. This is too much. This is what you're worth. Actually, you're worth more. But I'm trying not to overwhelm you." Lucia stared at the number, at the impossible freedom it represented. Freedom bought with danger, with marriage to a criminal, with entering a world she didn't understand. But freedom nonetheless. "Your dream," William said, pulling her from her thoughts. "The restaurant. Tell me about it." She'd been so focused on survival for so long, she'd almost forgotten she had dreams. Slowly, hesitantly, she described it. Honduran food, her abuela's recipes, a place where people who worked as hard as she did could feel valued, not rushed. Where waitresses were treated with dignity. William listened with complete focus, the kind of attention David had never given her. "Then we'll build it," he said simply. "We? You'll own it, run it, design every detail." He stood, walked to the windows overlooking the city. "I'll provide resources, capital, connections, protection, if you want them. But it will be yours." Lucia joined him at the window. This stranger who was now her husband, this dangerous man who wanted to build her dreams. "Why would you do this?" "Because I spent 6 months watching you sacrifice your dreams for survival." His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "Now survival is handled. What are you going to do with freedom?" Lucia looked out at the city. at all the possibilities spreading before her like an unwritten map. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "I've never had it before." William's hand found hers, warm and steady. "Then we'll figure it out together." 3 weeks passed in an uneasy rhythm. Breakfast together, William disappearing into his office for work, Lucia exploring her new boundaries. Her business classes continued. William arranged a driver, security watching from careful distances. She pretended not to notice. The connecting door remained closed at night, but dinners became shared territory. She learned his tells. The jaw clench meant anger. The hand flex meant restraint. The way he looked out windows meant he was calculating something dangerous. Then came the dinner invitation. "Associates," William said carefully over morning coffee. "They'll want to meet you, you don't have to come." "What do I need to know?" His eyes met hers, assessing. "Be yourself. Let me handle business. Don't drink anything I don't pour for you." The last rule made her blood run cold. The restaurant was exclusive, private room, 6 men and 2 women already seated when they arrived. All of them watched Lucia with calculating interest, like wolves assessing new pack hierarchy. William's hand at her back was possessive, a clear warning to everyone present. "My wife," he introduced her simply. The weight of those 2 words shifted something in the room's atmosphere. A woman named Valentina, elegant and sharp as cut glass, smiled without warmth. "So sudden, William. We thought you'd never marry. Plans change when you find the right person." A man called Santos, older, dangerous in a way that felt different from William, leaned back in his chair. "The waitress, yes? Quite the Cinderella story." Lucia's spine straightened. "Former waitress, current business student, future restaurant owner." Santos laughed. But it wasn't entirely friendly. "Ambitious. William, you found a fighter." William's voice dropped to ice. "I found my equal, remember that." The table's dynamic shifted instantly. Whatever test Santos had been running, William had just drawn a line in blood. The dinner continued with careful conversation and veiled references to business Lucia didn't understand, but she understood the power plays, the subtle threats, the way everyone deferred to William while simultaneously testing him. In the car afterward, William was tense, his jaw working. "You did well," he said finally. "Better than well." Santos was testing me. Valentina was assessing me. For what? Weakness. His hand found hers in the darkness. "They want to know if you're leverage against me." Lucia's heart stuttered. "Am I?" The pause lasted too long. "Yes," William said quietly. "That's the reality. You're my greatest weakness now." "Should I be afraid?" "Of them? I won't let them near you." His grip tightened. "Of what being with me costs, maybe." The next morning, Lucia's protection detail stopped her from leaving for class. "Protocol, Mrs. Alberto. Threat assessment." William appeared within minutes, phone pressed to his ear, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. "Someone asked questions about you. At your college, at the restaurant." He ended the call with sharp finality. "One of Santos's men." The world tilted. What does that mean? In his office, security footage played on multiple screens. A man in casual clothes asking staff about Lucia's schedule, her routines, her friends. "Santos is testing boundaries," William said, his voice controlled rage. "Seeing if I'll tolerate curiosity about my wife." He made 2 phone calls, terse, commanding, final. "It's handled," he said, turning to her. "He won't be a problem." "What did you do?" But she already knew, could see it in the set of his shoulders. "I reminded Santos that some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed." "Did you kill someone? For asking questions about me?" "No." William's eyes met hers. "But I made it clear what would happen if questions turned to action." Lucia sat heavily in his chair. "This is my life now. People watching, testing, threatening." William knelt before her, his hands on the armrests, caging her in. "Yes, I'm sorry. I can't change what I am, what my world is." "Can I go to class today?" "No, not today. Maybe not this week." Her frustration boiled over. So I'm a prisoner. You said I'd have freedom.
You said choice.
William's control cracked, his voice rising.
And I said I'd keep you alive.
Those are both true. Would you prefer I let you risk being taken, used against me, hurt to teach me a lesson? This isn't living. This is existing in your fortress. The silence between them was sharp, painful, electric, with everything unsaid. Lucia stood, pushing past him, walking to her room. The connecting door slammed, the first time she'd closed it in anger. She heard him on the other side, close, his voice muffled through the wood. Lucia, please, I'm trying to balance your freedom with your safety. Tell me how. She pressed her palm against the door, feeling his presence on the other side. But she didn't answer. For the first time since the wedding, the cage felt real. And she didn't know if the bars were for her protection or her imprisonment. 4 days of silence. Lucia emerged only for meals, eaten in cold politeness while William watched her with careful, pained attention. The penthouse felt like a mausoleum, beautiful and suffocating. Her protection detail reported, she knew they reported, that she'd been researching annulments, divorces, legal separations on her laptop. She wanted him to know, wanted him to understand that cages, no matter how gilded, were still cages. On the 4th evening, a note appeared under her door. Roof garden, 8 p.m. Please. W. Lucia debated ignoring it. Debated packing the few things that felt truly hers and walking out. But curiosity, and something else she didn't want to name, drew her upstairs at exactly 8. The roof garden was a space she hadn't known existed, lush, private, the city lights glittering below like fallen stars. A small table set for 2, wine, simple food that looked homemade. William stood by the railing in work clothes, tie loosened, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. Not the commanding criminal who filled rooms with authority, just a man, uncertain and alone. I'm sorry, he said before she could speak, for forgetting that safety without freedom is just another word for captivity. Lucia joined him at the railing but didn't sit. I researched you this week, really researched. Do you know what I found? William tensed. I can imagine. William Alberto, born in poverty in Buenos Aires. Mother died when you were 12. Tuberculosis. Raised by an uncle in the organization, became an enforcer at 17. She watched his face carefully. First kill at 18. The man who murdered your uncle. His jaw worked. But he didn't interrupt. You've never married, rarely date, known for being ruthless but fair. She turned to face him fully. But also, you paid for 3 employees' cancer treatments anonymously. You fund a scholarship for immigrant students. You've never harmed a woman or child. It's your one absolute rule. You investigated me? Something almost like admiration flickered in his eyes. You spent 6 months learning everything about me. Seemed fair. She crossed her arms. And my conclusion? You're dangerous, but not to me, not physically. Then what's the danger? That I'm starting to understand you. Her voice softened despite herself. I'm starting to see why you watched me, why you intervened, why you're so desperate to protect me. Why? His voice was rough, almost pleading. Because someone powerless defended you, T. Because I saw you as human when your world only sees you as a weapon or a threat. She stepped closer. Because in your world, that's rarer than diamonds. William's eyes glistened in the city lights. I've been angry about the cage, Lucia continued. But William, you're in one too. You can't trust anyone, can't show weakness, can't even breathe without it being strategic. The only difference is I didn't choose my cage. You've lived in yours so long you forgot it was there. What are you saying? He whispered. I'm saying we both need freedom. Real freedom. She took a breath. I need to leave this penthouse, go to class, live. And I need you to trust that I can navigate your world. Stop protecting me from it. Teach me to protect myself in it. If you want that kind of freedom, it comes with darker knowledge. William's voice was careful, measured. I'd have to teach you things that will change you. Survival skills, threat assessment. How to be hard when necessary. I'd have to introduce you to my world fully. Not the edges, but the center. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming but not threatening. Can you handle that? Can you be my partner, not my protected possession? Lucia's heart raced. Is that what you want? A partner? It's what I've wanted since that night at the restaurant when you chose kindness over fear. She walked to the table, poured 2 glasses of wine with steady hands, handed one to him. Then teach me. Tomorrow we start. Full transparency, full partnership. They drank, eyes locked. And tonight? William asked carefully. Tonight, we talk. Really talk. I want to know everything. They sat, and for hours, William shared his history, his mother's poetry, his uncle's lessons, his first betrayal, his deepest regret. Lucia shared her father's death, her first job at 12, her dreams deferred and fears carried alone. The city lights faded. Dawn approached. They were still talking. At her door, they paused. William's hand rested against the frame, close but not touching. Thank you, Lucia said quietly, for being honest. Thank you for staying. She opened her door, then turned back. William? Tomorrow night, maybe we leave the door unlocked, both sides. His smile was genuine, vulnerable, hopeful. I'd like that. Lucia closed her door but didn't lock it. On the other side, she heard William do the same. The space between them remained, but it was no longer a barrier. It was a bridge, waiting to be crossed when they were both ready. 2 months into their strange marriage, Lucia had found a rhythm. Mornings with William over coffee and Honduran breakfast. Days split between her business classes, now with visible security she'd learned to accept, and planning her restaurant. Evenings discussing his world, learning the invisible rules that governed the shadows. The connecting door stayed unlocked on both sides, though neither had crossed the threshold yet. It was enough to know they could. Then everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon. Lucia was leaving her accounting class when her phone buzzed. Not a call, an alert. Red screen. Single word. Protocol. Before she could process it, her security detail materialized. Marco, her primary guard, was suddenly at her elbow, his hand firm but not rough. Mrs. Alberto, we need to leave. Now. What's happening? Car. Now. Explanations en route. The SUV was running, door open. They moved her inside with practiced efficiency, and the vehicle was moving before her seatbelt clicked. Marco sat beside her, another guard driving, a third in the passenger seat. All of them had weapons visible now. Her phone rang. William, are you secure? His voice was controlled, but she heard the edge underneath. Yes. Marco has me. What's going on? Santos made a move. Not against me. Against you. A pause. There's been a credible threat. Attempted abduction planned for today. We intercepted communications this morning. Lucia's blood ran cold. Abduction? He wants leverage, wants to test whether I'll negotiate or retaliate. William's voice hardened. He's about to learn I don't negotiate. The SUV took corners too fast, weaving through traffic with illegal precision. Lucia gripped the door handle, her mind racing. Where are we going? Safe house, Marco said. Mr. Alberto will meet us there. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a neighborhood Lucia didn't recognize. Fortified, she realized as they entered. Steel door, reinforced walls, windows that looked bulletproof. More of William's men already inside, armed and alert. William arrived 20 minutes later, still in his suit but disheveled in a way she'd never seen him. His eyes found her immediately, scanning her for injury with visible relief. You're okay? I'm fine. Scared, but fine. He pulled her into his arms without asking permission, and Lucia let herself be held. His heart hammered against her cheek, his grip almost painful. This is my fault, he said against her hair. I should have anticipated this. You can't predict everything. I should have predicted this. He pulled back, his hands framing her face. Santos is testing boundaries. He leaked the plan intentionally, wanted me to intercept it. Wanted to see how I'd react. And how will you react? William's expression went cold. Decisively. One of his men approached with a laptop. Sir, we have confirmation. Santos is at his usual location. He's expecting contact. William's jaw worked. He looked at Lucia, then at the laptop, then back to her. I need to handle this, he said carefully. It won't be pretty. You don't have to see it. Lucia thought of the past 2 months, the education she'd asked for, the partnership she'd demanded. This was the reality she'd agreed to learn. Show me, she said. If I'm going to be in this world, I need to understand all of it. William studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But remember, you asked for this. He turned to his men. Set up the call. Full video. The laptop screen flickered to life. Santos appeared, sitting in what looked like an expensive office, a drink in his hand. His smile was arrogant. William? I wondered when you'd call. You made a mistake. William's voice was ice and death. You threatened what's mine. I tested your commitment. There's a difference. No, William said softly. There isn't. He made a gesture. One of his men tapped a phone. On the screen, Santos's office door burst open. 4 men entered, weapons drawn. Santos's smile vanished. What is this? This is the consequence of testing me, William said. You wanted to know if I'd negotiate. I won't. You wanted to know what she's worth to me. Everything. You wanted leverage. He leaned closer to the camera, his voice dropping to something terrifying. Now you have none. The screen went dark. William closed the laptop with finality, then turned to Lucia. His expression was unreadable. That's my world. That's what protection looks like. Still want to be my partner? Lucia's hands trembled, but her voice was steady. Yes, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more half-truths. No more protecting me from reality. If I'm going to survive in your world, I need to see it clearly. William's smile was small, proud, and something else. Deal. Full transparency. Starting now. He offered his hand. Lucia took it. The aftermath of Santos settled like ash. Lucia didn't ask what happened to him. The news reported a business dispute and a sudden relocation to Miami. William's expression when the topic came up told her everything she needed to know. Life continued, but different now, heavier. She attended her classes with visible security. Marco walked 3 paces behind, professional and silent. Her classmates whispered, speculated. One brave soul asked if she was a celebrity. Lucia didn't know how to answer. I'm married to a dangerous man didn't seem appropriate for casual conversation. The restaurant planning consumed her afternoons. William had acquired a property in her old neighborhood, not too gentrified, not too rough, perfect for what she envisioned. Architects presented drawings, contractors submitted bids, edit them. Everything moved with the efficiency of William's money and influence. But the connecting door, unlocked for weeks, began to feel like a question neither of them knew how to answer. One evening, William came home later than usual, his suit jacket gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up. Blood on his cuffs, not his own, she knew instinctively. He saw her notice, didn't try to hide it. Business meeting, he said simply. The kind that requires bloodshed? The kind that requires reminders about respect. He moved to pour himself whiskey, his movements controlled but tight with residual tension. A supplier thought he could skim product and blame it on transit losses. Lucia set down her restaurant plans. And now? Now he understands the terms of our agreement more clearly. The casual way he discussed violence should have terrified her. Maybe it did, but it also felt honest in a way David's polished lies never had. William didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. Do you enjoy it? She asked quietly. The violence? William's hand stilled on his glass. No, but I don't shy from it either. It's a tool, like money or information, sometimes necessary. He turned to face her fully. Does that disgust you? Lucia considered this carefully. It should. But I keep thinking about David. About how he used words and social cruelty and abandonment as his weapons. At least your violence is honest. Something flickered in William's eyes. Surprise. Maybe relief. "You're not what I expected," he said. "What did you expect?" "Someone who'd try to change me, reform me, make me into something acceptable." He moved closer, stopping a careful distance away. "Or someone who'd break under the weight of what I am." "I'm not trying to change you," Lucia said. "I'm trying to understand you. There's a difference." The air between them felt charged, heavy with 2 months of careful distance and unlocked doors neither had crossed. William's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. "I have to go. Something that can't wait." "Now? It's almost midnight." "My world doesn't keep business hours." He shrugged into a clean jacket one of his men had brought. "Don't wait up." But Lucia did wait up. She sat in the living room, watching the city lights, her mind replaying everything. The wedding that wasn't hers until it was. The surveillance that felt like obsession wrapped in protection. The violence that kept her safe while making her complicit. At 3 a.m. she heard the penthouse door open. William's footsteps, heavier than usual. He appeared in the doorway, and this time the blood was definitely his. Split knuckles, a cut above his eyebrow. "You should be sleeping," he said. "You should be not bleeding." Lucia stood, moving to the kitchen for the first aid kit she'd learned was kept under the sink. "It's nothing. Sit down." Something in her voice made him obey. He sat at the kitchen counter while she cleaned the cut on his face with careful hands. He watched her the entire time, his dark eyes intense. "Why do you stay?" he asked quietly. Lucia's hands paused. "What?" "You could leave. Take the money, take your mother's building, take everything I've given you and disappear. I'd let you go if you really wanted to." His voice dropped. "So why do you stay?" She met his eyes, inches away, her fingers still pressed to his face. "Because you're the first person who ever saw me as valuable," she said. "Not just useful or convenient or beneath them. Valuable. Worth protecting. Worth—" She struggled for words. "Worth everything you've done. Even the darkness? Even the blood?" "Especially that." Her thumb brushed his cheekbone. "Because it means you're not pretending. You're not performing goodness while being cruel behind closed doors. You're just honest about what you are." William's hand came up to cover hers against his face. "I don't deserve you," he said. "Probably not," Lucia agreed. "But I'm starting to think I don't deserve you either, and maybe that's enough." The space between them evaporated. She wasn't sure who moved first. The kiss was nothing like their wedding, not careful or questioning. It was desperate, claiming. 2 months of tension finally breaking. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, William's forehead rested against hers. "The door," he said roughly. "Your room. Do you want—" "Yes," Lucia interrupted, "but not tonight. Not when you're bleeding and exhausted and I'm emotionally wrung out." His laugh was surprised, genuine. Practical even now. "One of us has to be." She finished bandaging his knuckles, then stood. At the hallway she paused. "William, the door stays unlocked, both sides, and when we're ready, really ready, we'll walk through it together." His smile was soft, vulnerable in the dim kitchen light. "Together," he agreed. Lucia went to her room, closed the door but didn't lock it, and for the first time since the wedding, fell asleep feeling like maybe, possibly, this strange marriage might become something real. 3 months into their marriage, the restaurant opened. Abuela's kitchen stood on the corner of 7th Street, warm light spilling onto the sidewalk, the scent of plantains and slow-cooked beans drawing people inside. Lucia had designed every detail, the mismatched chairs that felt like home, the photos of Honduras on the walls, the menu written in her abuela's handwriting that she'd painstakingly recreated. William stood at the back during the opening night, watching her move through the space with confidence she'd never had at David's side. She greeted customers, directed her small staff, checked plates with the critical eye of someone who knew exactly what good food should taste like. When their eyes met across the crowded room, his pride was visible, unmistakable. After closing, after the last customer left and her staff had cleaned and gone home, Lucia found him waiting in the kitchen. She was exhausted, her feet aching, her chef's coat stained, and she'd never felt more alive. You did it, William said simply. We did it. She leaned against the counter. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. It would have just taken longer. He moved closer. This is all you, Lucia. Your vision, your dream. I just cleared the path. She looked at him. This dangerous man who'd orchestrated her wedding, who'd watched her for 6 months, who'd killed for her and built her dreams and given her freedom even when it terrified him. I need to tell you something, she said. William tensed. What? I'm not afraid anymore. Her voice was steady. Of you? Of your world? Of what being your wife means? I'm not saying it's not dangerous. I'm saying I choose it anyway. His breath caught. Lucia, I'm saying the connecting door has been unlocked for 3 months, and we've been waiting for the perfect moment. She stepped closer. But there is no perfect moment. There's just this. Us. Now. William's hands found her waist, careful despite the intensity in his eyes. Are you sure? You don't have to. I know I don't have to. She rose on her toes, her lips brushing his. I want to. I've wanted to for weeks, maybe longer. The kiss was different from the desperate one in the kitchen after he'd come home bleeding. This was certain, deliberate, a choice made with full knowledge and no illusions. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, William pressed his forehead to hers. I love you, he said quietly. I've loved you since you defended me to that drunk bastard and lost your job for it. I've loved you through every Thursday night dinner, every observed moment, every time I told myself I was just protecting an investment. Lucia's heart hammered. You've never said that before. I was waiting until you were ready to hear it. Are you? She thought of David, who'd said he loved her while planning to abandon her. Thought of William, who'd orchestrated everything but always given her the choice to leave. Yes, she whispered. And I love you too. Even though you're impossible and controlling, and you watched me for 6 months like a stalker. His laugh was surprised, genuine. Fair criticism. But you also saw me when I was invisible. Protected me when I didn't know I needed it. Built my dreams when yours would have been easier. She pulled back to meet his eyes. You chose me. Every day you choose me. How could I not love that? William swept her into his arms without warning, and Lucia laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck. Take me home, she said. We are home. No. She smiled against his neck. Take me to our home. No more separate rooms. No more unlocked doors waiting to be crossed. Just us. He carried her out of the restaurant. Her kingdom. Her dream made real. Marco was waiting with the car, pretending not to notice that his boss was carrying his wife like something precious and irreplaceable. The drive home was quiet, charged, full of 3 months of careful distance finally collapsing. In the penthouse, William set her down gently in the hallway between their rooms. The connecting door stood open as it had for months. Last chance, he said softly. If you want to wait. Lucia took his hand and pulled him toward his room, their room now. I'm done waiting, she said. I'm done with careful distance and unlocked doors and pretending this isn't what I want. She turned to face him at the foot of the bed. I want you. All of you. The dangerous parts and the gentle parts and everything in between. William's hands framed her face, his touch reverent. You have me. You've always had me. The space between them disappeared. Later, in the darkness, Lucia lay with her head on William's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. What are you thinking? He asked quietly. That I was humiliated at my own wedding and claimed by a criminal. And somehow that was the best thing that ever happened to me. His laugh rumbled through his chest. Dark fairy tale logic. The best kind. She tilted her head to look at him. What are you thinking? That I watched you for 6 months planning to possess you, and instead you possessed me. His arms tightened around her. And I've never been happier to lose control. Lucia smiled against his skin. You haven't lost control. We're just sharing it now. Even better. She fell asleep in his arms, in their bed, In the life they'd built from humiliation and obsession and unexpected love, the cage had become a home, the prisoner had become a partner, and the monster had become, simply, a man who loved her. In the morning, she'd wake up to coffee made exactly how she liked it, and a husband who knew her favorite poet and her sock size and the exact way she took her coffee. She'd wake up to a life she never planned but couldn't imagine living without. She'd wake up chosen, cherished, free. And that, Lucia thought as sleep claimed her, was worth everything.